Hello, Toby Witzke here. Welcome to video 2 in the 5 video series. Today our topic is going to be evaluating where you are right now, or how to take assessments and measure where your current fitness level. Now, why do we want to do that? Because it's been shown that what you measured gets improved. So the things we're going to take a look at, your basic body weight. We're going to look at body mass index and body fat versus lean body mass. Look at general circumference measurements, and some specific ways to measure your strength, your aerobic capacity, and your flexibility. And last, photographs. Don't underestimate just the good value of photographs or even short videos. So you should be using those to document your progress, and make sure you get them marked as to what day it was. Now, on the weight part, recognize that your body weight really can change a lot related to how hydrated you are. For example, like fighters, MMA, and boxer types can easily rehydrate over 10% of their body weight in just a day or so. So be consistent with when you weigh yourself, and mindful of what you've eaten and what you've consumed liquid-wise just in front of when you take those measurements. Here's a chart, an ideal body weight chart. Now this is for women. And note there are 3 columns of small frame, medium, and large frame. So I would go with the medium frame. If you think you're an outlier, the way to check it would be, one way is to measure your wrist. Use your pointer finger and your thumb, wrap it around your other wrist. If it doesn't touch, you'd be a large frame. If it just touches, that's medium. If it overlaps, you'd be a small frame. Now, you got to be careful with these results. And there's another way to test. It's explained on the link I'll send in the email. It's measuring the circumference on the outside of your elbow when your arm's bent at 90 degrees. And the measurements are on the chart there on the link I'll send. But for example, I got different results for myself. I got large frame with the wrist measure and medium frame when I did the elbow measurement. So just be mindful of that. Okay, another measure is the body mass index. Now, this is nothing more than a comparison of your height to your weight. Here's the chart. It's your mass or your weight divided by your height squared. There's formulas for both kilograms and the English measurements for pounds and inches. I'll also have a link in the email where you can find an online calculator to take care of this. But here's a chart, an example. For example, if you're 150 pounds and you are 5'6", your BMI is 24. Now, to figure out what that means, let's take a look at this chart. We have the height in feet and inches along the right, and the weights at the top in pounds. You have the kilogram and meter measurements on the other sides. But the chart works like this. Less than 18.5 BMI is going to be considered underweight. The normal range in the yellow band here is 18.5 to 25. The orange is 25 to 30. That's overweight. And obese starts at a BMI of 30 and greater. So if you are 5 feet 7, that's here, and you weigh 150, you're right on the higher end of the yellow band, which is the normal right here. So that's how you use this chart. Now, what this does not take into consideration is muscle or lean body mass. Now, when we talk about that, let's focus on one item, and that's going to be, what's the essential fat? Here's a chart broken down by men and women. In the first category here, the essential fats. Look at the big difference. Men's essential fat is only 2 to 4%, while women's is 10 to 12%. So a 300 to 500% variance there. Pretty significant. Just focusing on the women here, we'll take a look at how it jumps up, what categories, find out where you're at, how it compares. But athletes for women might be in the 14 to 20% range. Moving a little step higher, 21 to 24 would be considered people that are fit. It's still acceptable to be up in the 25 to 31, and then at 32 and over is considered to be obese for women. How do you go about measuring your body fat? Well, there's a couple of solutions out there. They're pretty simple and they're cheap to implement. Number one would be the bioimpedance feedback. That would be this example here. There's a handheld unit, and also a weight scale unit that can be had. These are the handheld units can be found in the sports stores like Dick's and the Sports Authority for about $30. These other versions you can get them, but even at the Walmart type of thing, they're probably a little bit more expensive, but there's a bigger range of those out there. But the way these work, they send an electrical impulse through your body. It's low current, and it doesn't, there's no harm. You won't even feel it. But it recognizes that lean body mass and fat, transmit the electrical charge at a different rate, and it's able to measure that, and that's how it gets its results. The charge would come through these little foot things here on the weight scale. So that one might be useful for you to serve two functions, whereas the handheld one's not going to be good for anything but taking your body fat measurements. But you'll need to key some basic information into it. You'll need to key in gender, height, weight, things like that, age, and then it'll do the calculations for you. All you have to do is stand on there for a couple seconds to get your results. The other method is going to be a skin fold caliper measurement. These things here are just little plastic things, can be had for less than $10, but they're used to pull out the skin with your fingers and measure the distance between a fold. Yeah, this mechanism here has a sort of a way that it keeps the constant pressure. There's a little catch there. It'll use the same amount of pressure to trigger the catch, so it'll push the same resistance each time it measures. That you measure this in millimeters, add up the number of sites you measure, and then there's a formula to key that in. Now here's the sites that are generally measured. There's 3-site, 5-site, 7-site measurements out there. The simpler 3-site one I'm going to talk about. There's different sites utilized by male and female. You can look at the chart here and see that both male and female use this front of the thigh measurement site. Suprailiac site is used by the females here, just above the pointer hip bone. The males actually use the chest measurement and the abdominal measurement. Then the females also use the back of the tricep measurement. So you would take these three measurements, add them up, and then I'll put a link online in the email that'll guide you to a place where you can key the numbers in and get your results. Okay, the next measure you want to take a look at is just your basic body circumference, and you'll want to use a flexible tape as your measurement device. You'll want to wear thin clothes and be consistent from one measurement to the next, and try to measure yourself in front of a full-length mirror so that you can see the tape measures positioned correctly and consistently from time to time. If you have a helper, that might be good to keep sure that you're measuring in the same places. And you want to keep your muscles relaxed when you do this, and you'll only want to pull the tape till it's just tight, till there's no slack in it. You don't want to squeeze it at all. But the general spots you're going to measure here, you're going to measure chest around the largest part of the chest. You're going to measure your bicep here, middle of the arm, with your arm hanging down. You're going to measure your waist at the narrowest point, approximately 1 inch above your belly button. Don't pull in or stick out. Just try to be normal. And you're going to measure your hips around the largest part of your buttocks with your heels together. And then you're going to measure your thighs are measured separately. Stand with your legs slightly apart. Measure the upper leg where the circumference is largest. All right, that's how to take body measurements. You can look at individual ones, or you generally add them all up and come up with one total, and then measure what your grand total changes over time during your training. All right, some other fitness tests we'll take a look at. And why do you want to do these? Fitness tests allow us to identify our physical strengths and our weaknesses. So they act as a benchmark, and we're able to use that to provide suitable training program that's specific to your individual needs. In fact, without the assessment, any subsequent training may address already strong areas and neglecting weak points, which you don't want. So some of the reasons why benchmarking would be an important reason. You develop a set of tests to conduct. You develop a baseline for yourself, and then you're able to compare to benchmarks that are norms and standards in each major area, and it's easy to identify a major weakness you may have. I mean, you don't have unlimited time and unlimited resources to invest into the fitness program, do you? Well, then, best to search for those areas that you're going to give the biggest payback. It's like a lot of other things out there, the 80-20 rule. You want to find the 20% of things that if you focus on, they're going to make up 80% of the results that you can get out of a fitness program. Goal setting. I mean, setting specific measurable goals is fundamental part of an efficient fitness program. It's not best to say, I want to be fitter, but it'd be more appropriate to say, I want to increase my lean body mass by 3% in 120 days. Now, that's going to be very measurable, and you're going to be a much firmer body achieving that goal. Feedback. Individuals at any fitness level, if you're serious enough to spend the time, if you're going to invest the time into a fitness program, you want to get it, you want to see the results, right? Well, the only way to determine if a training or program is working is to test it regularly. I mean, you may be able to say, I feel better and look better, but seeing the results in black and white is usually very inspiring. All right, another example, one example of a specific test for upper body strength and endurance would be the push-up fitness test. Now it's separated between men and women. We're categorized here for different age groups. But the way you perform this is you perform your push-up in strict form, and it's to exhaustion, as many push-ups as you can do. You want to make sure that you have a straight line from your heels up to your shoulders. You don't want your rear end sinking or pointed up. And you want to lower your arms until they reach about a 90-degree angle. Now, the biggest mistake I see people make when they do push-ups is allowing their elbows to stick out away from their body. You want your elbows to be tucked in towards your torso. And that way you're going to use more of the power in your chest. You start relying on more your triceps when you start sticking your elbows out and pointing them away from your body. So do your test and then compare yourself to this chart and figure out if that's an area where you are really weak and if in fact you need to focus on your upper body strength and endurance. How you measure your aerobic capacity is called the VO2 max, or aerobic power, and maximal oxygen uptake. They're all the same thing. And the definition of this test is really the highest rate of oxygen that your body can consume at its maximum effort. It's the best indicator of your cardiorespiratory endurance and aerobic fitness, and it's measured as milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. So it is related to how large you are. Now, genetics play a large part in this, and as much as 25 to 50% of the variance in individuals. In previously sedentary people, when trained at 75% of their aerobic power for 30 minutes, 3 times a week, over 6 months, the testing has found that people's VO2 max is increased by an average of 15 to 20%. Okay, moving on to flexibility. There's only a few tests that are reliable for flexibility, and the sit and reach test is the most common flexibility test. It measures the areas of your low back and your hamstrings, which really are kind of key to low back pain and what hampers a lot of people, so this is an excellent test. Before you perform this test, though, make sure you warm up considerably. You want a full 10 minutes of light jogging or skipping around to get your body completely warm. As in this picture, the way you do it is you sit on the ground with your legs stretched out straight, feet about 10-12 inches apart. You'll place a ruler on the ground or a yardstick marked off with tape at, say, the 15-inch mark. You'll put your heels at that 15-inch mark, and the zero marker would be towards your body. And what you'll do is you'll reach forward with hands overlapping, and extend as far as possible and see how far out on the measure